the updated quarterback rankings that have changed for us because Deshaun Watson going to Cleveland. You have Russell Wilson, as Heath alluded to, going to the Broncos. Tom Brady staying with the Buccaneers. Hey, who was surprised by that? The 40-day retirement for the all-time greatest quarterback in NFL history. Aaron Rodgers stays with the Packers, and Derek Carr gets the new weapon there. But here is our updated top 12 quarterback rankings. These are our consensus rankings. So again, for those of you looking at it from a redraft or best ball perspective, dynasty rankings obviously a little bit different. You can follow those based on Heath Cummings rankings on the site. So let's start with Deshaun Watson going to the Browns. So for me, he's number 8. For you guys, he's number 7. So he comes in consensus-wise number 7. The big thing clearly now is not just the change in scenery after not playing the 2021 campaign sitting out because the Texans trying to trade him. Obviously, the off-field implications of the 22 civil suits that he's dealing with as well. But that leads us to what could be a potential suspension. So how much does that factor into your rankings with him going to the new team and maybe not being able to play for what could be the first 6 games of the season?
Yeah, that's what I'm banking on, is that there will be a short-ish suspension, something that's going to keep him out for 4 to 6 games. Well, it's a huge chunk of the fantasy season, but that means that you've got him fresh and healthy when he does come back off of that suspension. Of course, the longer the suspension is, the lower I would move him down in my rankings, and there's always the chance that suspension lasts most, if not all, of the 2022 season. But when we last saw him, he was averaging 26 fantasy points per game. He was doing it in Houston, so indoor track. Certainly had Will Fuller on his side. Now he's got Amari Cooper. We'll see if Fuller joins Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. For now, I kind of like the idea of getting him and knowing that I'm going to have to find another quarterback. You can do that this year. There are enough quarterbacks to go around where you can draft 2, put Watson on your bench, and hope that he carries you to a fantasy playoff berth.
If you're going to draft a suspended player, quarterback's definitely the best place to do it. I think there's 18 QB1s right now, so it should not be hard in the double-digit rounds to find somebody to start the first month of the season. My other concern, though, is how many times are they going to let him throw the ball? This Cleveland offense, no more than 520 pass attempts in each of the last 3 seasons. I would expect they'll throw more with Watson back there, but how much will determine, because he needs to be a top 5 quarterback when he's there to justify this ranking.
Could be a 23-game layoff that we haven't seen him from the 2021 campaign, and if there is a 6-game suspension as well. You're right, there is obviously wiggle room for your fantasy roster, unless we're talking about a 5-person bench and you can't stash him in an IR spot or one of those positions. So it could be a little bit tougher to justify drafting a suspended player and carrying 2 quarterbacks, but the upside clearly is there. As you said, Dave, he's been pretty special, a top 5 quarterback for the Texans. So we'll find out when the suspension, if in fact it does happen, and how much it impacts our rankings. But as you see right now, a top 8 quarterback regardless across the board. For me, I like Russell Wilson better than Deshaun Watson because of the potential suspension. If there was no scenario looming like that, I would have Watson ranked ahead of Wilson. But Wilson comes in at 6 for me, 9 for both of you. So we differ a little bit on this situation. Consensus-wise, Russell Wilson is number 8. So Heath, you already said you're excited about the move happening there. Dave, your thoughts on Russell Wilson going to the Broncos. And finally, we might get the chance to see Russ cook.
I hope so. I don't think they make a trade this big to get Russell Wilson to have him hand off to Javonte, although the Javonte Williams dynasty managers are hoping for that exact scenario to happen, but it's not going to. You look at the receivers that are there for him. You look at the offensive line that's there for him, and you look at Nathaniel Hackett as the play caller. Hackett has a pretty decent track record of utilizing his quarterback to his strengths. And I think Russ's strengths are downfield passing. That's going to be great for Cortland Sutton. It's going to be good for Tim Patrick. And I don't think we've really seen it that much from Jerry Jeudy. He's been locked into that slot role for the majority of his career. I'd like to see him get on the outside a little bit more, and I bet we do. I think Russell Wilson has an easy chance to be a top 8 fantasy quarterback and could finish top 5. We've seen that from him before.
Yeah, his career high in pass attempts, 558. Last year, league median was 593 attempts. If they could just be average and get Russ close to 600 attempts, we're probably all too low on him.
I spent some time talking to Cortland Sutton in the last couple of weeks. He trains right down the street from us at XPE Sports. And he was saying just, now they have a guy for his purposes that he can get some back shoulder fades, some end zone fades, some different throws that they haven't had with the guys. And he specifically cited, Joe Flacco, Drew Lock, Trevor Siemian, the quarterbacks that he's played with in his career so far in Denver. He's going to change this offense, and we expect it to be obviously for the better. So Jerry Jeudy gets a big boost in value. We'll show you that when we get to our receivers, Cortland Sutton as well. But I think Russell Wilson, in what is going to be the best division in football, having to compete with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and now Derek Carr because of the addition of Devontae Adams, we could see a lot of shootouts. So I do think this is going to be potentially the best season of Russell Wilson's career. I love, love, love the upside for Russell Wilson. I don't love him, though, as much as Tom Brady, and that probably seems a little bit strange to say because Wilson going to a new situation in Denver, Brady staying in the same situation, and having a little bit change in his receiving core because obviously no Antonio Brown. They're not going to bring him back, but they keep Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. We're going to find out most likely in the next couple of days. Rob Gronkowski, at least we hope, coming back to the Buccaneers. Brady, we all have ranked higher than Deshaun Watson, higher than Russell Wilson, and again, potential suspension might factor in here when it comes to Watson. So Heath, Brady stays, that 40-day retirement. We all have kids. Probably found out it's a little bit tougher to be at home with your family as opposed to playing football. But in any event, Tom Brady back. We saw last year, as you see the numbers here, amazing as a fantasy quarterback, despite the fact that he's going to be 45 years old. No hesitation, though, to rank him as a top 5 or 6 quarterback. Dave has him at 6. Heath and I have him at 5.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because we talked for so many years about how this league was changing and you had to have a running quarterback in fantasy football. And then it turns out if you go to a team that lets you throw it 700 times and you have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, you can be really good in fantasy still. I think he's going to be a top 5 guy. He's one of a handful of quarterbacks who could be the number 1 quarterback in fantasy this year.
They add Russell Gage to, hopefully be that Antonio Brown replacement. But, Dave, if there is no Gronk and Chris Godwin has an extended absence because of the ACL tear that he suffered late in the season, and as of now, the running back situation seems a little messy. Leonard Fournette visiting the Patriots today, so it doesn't seem like he's going to be back. Keyshawn Vaughn right now, the guy at the top of the depth chart. So with the change in weapons and the offensive line a downgrade, he loses both of his guards. Does Brady still have this much upside?
No, if you're going to take Rob Gronkowski away from him, I think that hurts. I'm expecting Gronk to just stay with Tom Brady, and you go and you look at how Tom Brady did just in fantasy points per game, and this is in 6-point leagues. Without Antonio Brown last year, 25.3 fantasy points per game. And if you look at how he did in 2020, the entirety of 2020, this is a full season ago, 25.4. So it's a pretty steady dose of 25 fantasy points per game from Tom Brady. At first, I was a little nervous about ranking him as high as I am, but now I'm excited. I would consider drafting him. And this is the weird thing with quarterbacks. I don't want to reach for Tom Brady, but I'm happy if he's there in like round 6. I might take the chance on him then.
Imagine when he looks at this division and now they lost Matt Ryan. They bring in Marcus Mariota, just looking around. I would probably come back too if I were him, especially given the money that he's going to make in another chance at a Super Bowl run. But we're excited about it for the fantasy ramifications that it brings to Tampa Bay and certainly to the quarterback position because Brady's still getting it done at a very high level. And for the most part, Aaron Rodgers getting it done at a very high level, but not necessarily with the same optimism that we've had for Rodgers going into this year based on previous years because, as Dave alluded to, the Davante Adams trade. So we're going to flip the page a little bit here. No longer a consensus top 12 quarterback. Now, that might be because of me. I have him ranked at 14. You guys still have him at number 12. So you're hanging on a little bit. You're hoping that Aaron Rodgers is still going to be that number 1 quarterback, the MVP back-to-back seasons in the NFL. However, his fantasy scenario changing quite a bit when you take away arguably the best receiver in the NFL. So, Heath, why is Aaron Rodgers still a number 1 quarterback? And why is he better than Derek Carr, who now has the best friend of Aaron Rodgers in Davante Adams?
Well, the last 10 years or 15 years or 17 years is why he's better than Derek Carr. But I do think you look at what he did without Adams over the last couple of years, and it's small sample sizes, and he was awesome. I don't think you can expect that, but I would expect they're going to go get a number 1 wide receiver in the draft. And he's still going to produce enough to be a borderline top 12 guy. You look at Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, put them all in a bag. And the thing is, with Rodgers' name, he's going to get drafted first. So I'm not going to draft a lot of Rodgers.
Yeah.
I'd much rather draft Carr or Cousins wherever they're going to end up because I don't think there's really much difference between them now.
So, Dave, you got it 12 and 13. I know you want to make the switch. You want to do it. You want to put Carr ahead of Rodgers because you look at the weapons right now. Again, it's not done with what the receivers are. But that receiving core is miserable. Absolutely miserable.
Not a fan of Alan Lazard.
Not as much as I'm a fan of Davante Adams, Darren Waller, and Hunter Renfrow. I mean, you look at the group there, and I'll go back to what I said about Russell Wilson. Those AFC West games, that could be 35-30 every week, and how these teams are operating. Rodgers may be handing off a lot more to Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon and running a much more conservative offense. So why do you have Aaron Rodgers ahead of Derek Carr?
I feel like it's because of past history with ranking Aaron Rodgers.
We're looking ahead.
I know we're looking ahead, but the last 2 times we tried to look ahead with Aaron Rodgers, we thought there's no way he could be as good.
He had weapons.
And then he ended up being great. I don't know if they're going to draft anybody in the first round or anything like that. A rookie wide receiver.
Their track record.
Exactly. Based on their track record, they're going to add somebody in round 6, and it's going to be a waste. But Rodgers can make things happen. That small sample size that Heath talked about, I think it's negligible. I think that Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback. He can make his receivers better. I think Heath really said it best. There's like 5 or 6 quarterbacks that are in the same range that you're going to wait till pick 100 to go get if you don't grab a quarterback early on, and you will feel fine going into your season, whether it's Rodgers, Stafford, Jalen Hurts, or even Derek Carr. Just whichever one you like the best that's available later in the draft, you go and you get.
I'm tempted to, and this is where I'm, towing the line a little bit. Trey Lance ahead of Aaron Rodgers. Justin Fields maybe ahead of Aaron Rodgers.
Why not draft both?
You can.
If you want to carry 2 quarterbacks.
Well, it's easier to do that again with Carr and Cousins probably than it is with Rodgers. I think Rodgers will be drafted higher where that cost of one of the young guys.
But I don't know how many people are going to be excited about Aaron Rodgers because, again,
right.
It's not like you guys are saying he's top 10. You have him at 12, and the scale is sliding. So he may get Julio Jones. He may get Odell Beckham. He may get somebody in the draft in the first round, and you might say, okay, it's a little bit better than what it looks like. They may bring back Marquez Valdez-Scantling. But it just doesn't feel like there's upside right now with Aaron Rodgers, and I think that's where it's starting to fall a little bit. So 14 may be conservative at this point once we get to the start of the offseason, especially after the NFL draft. Let's talk about Derek Carr because he's been a good quarterback. He hasn't obviously been a very consistent, great fantasy quarterback. But now you give him his college teammate from Fresno State in Devontae Adams. Darren Waller, hopefully healthy for a full season. Last year missed some time. Hunter Renfrow took a step forward last year. So you have this great receiving core, great pass catchers in place with a good pass catching running back that hopefully they'll use a little bit more in Josh Jacobs, and now a new head coach in Josh McDaniels. Can Derek Carr not just be a top 15 quarterback? Can he be a top 10 fantasy quarterback?
I think he's definitely got the upside to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback because he's got Devontae Adams there, but I also think he's got the potential to be a top 20 and just disappoint us. And he's been disappointing. He's been top 10 in yards per attempt over the past 3 seasons. He's been top 15
but it's
in
different.
pass attempts
it's
overall.
Different.
He's ranked 21st, 15th, and 23rd in touchdown rate. He's been miserable in the red
different
zone.
coach, different weapons.
I hope so. But
I know so.
Well,
I
no. I know it's a different coach. I know it's different weapons, but I don't know if it necessarily means better results. So I think you can wait on Derek Carr and not rush to take him ahead of the Stafford, Rodgers, Hurts range. I think he's right in that group where you speculate on him and maybe, if not draft another quarterback from the Lance Fields, Lawrence range, then you just hope that you find one off the waiver wire if the first 3 weeks bomb out.
I mean, you just need Carr to be what he was last year with a league average touchdown rate. He threw for 4,800 yards. He's had a 3.7% touchdown rate, which is considerably lower than what he's been for his career. I think it's going to be interesting.
Lost his tight end for a lot of that.
Right.
Lost his number 1 receiver.
It will be really interesting with that situation and with the Broncos situation. How much did the quarterback impact the wide receiver? How much did the wide receivers impact the quarterback? 'Cause I think Russell Wilson's got a downgrade from what we've seen in receiver talent, going from DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett to Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy.
But the argument to that would be is the depth.
Right,
Because now
right.
he's not just, we're all excited about Alberto. So he has maybe a better tight end than he did in Gerald Everett.
He's going to get more pass attempts, too.
He has hopefully more pass attempts.
Right.
And again, the shootout potential for what this division
But
could be.
is Devontae Adams with Derek Carr? The same guy he's been with Aaron Rodgers.
They better hope so that they pay him.
I don't think he will be statistically, and that makes me a little bit nervous. And the other side to it, and this is me talking out of both sides of my mouth, who's got the worst defense in the AFC West? Without question.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.